G'day, welcome to Pay It Forward. Today I'm showing you what I like to call my Essential Toolbox. So the sorts of little patterns and projects that I offer you here and the type of work that I do, it requires a certain little group of tools, and I'm sure you've seen some of them throughout my videos, but I thought I would show you exactly what I keep. So I don't want you buying unnecessary tools and so on, but I really want you equipped to be able to make up my patterns and that it's a good, easy, positive experience. So I'm also going to be doing a little question and answer session afterwards. I hope you'll stay for that and enjoy that. But for now, let's go have a little peek into my toolbox. So let's have a look at the essentials that I have in my toolbox at the same time, and it's a whole lot less than what you might think, but they're very specific to the type of sewing and the patterns that I make for you. Now, we won't be talking about fabrics today because I have done a video on preparing a felt and the types of felt that I like to use, and I will put that link up here so you can see those. We're talking about the actual tools and the bits and pieces that I reach for every time I make up a new design. So we start with the very basics. The basics for me are scissors, and I have a larger pair of shears and a little pair of shears for cutting out little tiny bits and precision work. Both are equally as important to me. I am a bit of a scissors snob. I do like to spend a little more on my scissors, but when I say a little more, generally a pair of large shears like this will cost me around about between $15 and $20. So don't buy the cheap scissors, they're really not worth it. It's best to invest in a good pair. So those two there. And on the subject of scissors, I thoroughly recommend investing on a good pair, same sort of cost, usually about $20, for a great pair of pinking shears. And these are the large dressmaking ones. Now these are fabulous, I use them all the time, not just for decorative cutting, which you can do, but for me it's great for cutting those, trimming back and notching those seams. That gives us a really rounded finish. It's much quicker to use your pinking shears and a more even result than to use your little snips with your scissors. So thoroughly recommend a pair of pinking shears. The next vital pieces in my toolkit are my forceps. Now these are now quite readily available online because they're recognised as being such a useful tool in the soft sculpture industry, and we have obviously several sizes here. I probably use these ones the most, and they are locking, so they're great because you can actually clamp things and hold onto them, but these mostly I use for stuffing. So it means you can grab your pieces of stuffing and put them in your little project, and you can put it exactly where you need it to be. And of course forceps come in so many different sizes, so I've got quite a few little pairs here, and if you can get a hold of the really tiny ones, they're just absolutely fabulous. And forceps also help you with turning things through as well, and these little ones are great for filling little tiny areas here. So if you want to move forward in the 3D sewing, this will be the best tool you buy, your pair of forceps. So definitely invest in those. Now speaking of turning things through, I like to have I have collected these just plastic knitting needles, various sizes and points. They are perfect for turning your little items through and pushing out your corners with those little tips. They're also great for making your little holes for your eyes and for your joints, or enlarging them without damaging the fabric. So I've just collected them from thrift stores over the years. I pick them up whenever I see them, and I've always got a few there. Similarly, we can't get much done in this sort of sewing without an awl. So just a tailor's awl. You can get them as a graduated awl, which means that they get larger as they get to the base, and they're actually very handy if you can find one of those. And we use these for making the little joint holes and the little holes for the eyes and attachments like that. So can't be without an awl. A fine pen. just a fine black marker with a very fine tip, and that is useful for almost everything. I use it for tracing around my initial pattern pieces and cutting out, because we get a really fine line, because if you use a thicker marker, you've got a thicker line, and on tiny projects, those little variances make all the difference in your finished result. So a nice fine marker is key in your toolkit. Now we talk about sewing. So when we're going to talk about needles here, there's a few different ones that you'll need that are specific to my type of three-dimensional sewing. So we are going to need some doll needles. So we need a large one. Now the large one is for thread jointing right the way through our little animals at times, and also for putting in our eyes. So we need a nice long one that's nice and straight, and also a medium one, which is a finer one, and I use the medium one to sew ears on. They're great for thread jointing little items. I wouldn't be without this little needle. Use it all the time. Also, a needle you may have seen but perhaps have never used, usually come in your universal kit, is a little curved needle. And for years I never touched it, never used it. And then once I started using it for closing, mainly for closing openings, sewing that ladder stitch and closing openings on little stuffed items where they have perhaps a little curve. These are absolutely fabulous. Take a little bit of practice. Once you get used to them, you wouldn't be without them. So for my normal sewing, my size of needle, I use just a medium sized darner. For a couple of reasons. Probably because the threads that I use, they're usually an extra strong thread, so I want the eye in my needle to be quite big to accommodate my thread, and also my embroidery threads. I guess a darner might seem like quite a savage sort of a needle, but because my projects are always made of felt and they're interfaced, I really need a nice strong needle. That's still quite slender. So this one is a size 3/9, and you can see there that it's just a medium size. I just buy those in bulk and I use them all the time. Now, speaking of needles, another key thing that I have in my toolkit that you may have seen me use in videos, it is a wool felting needle. So now these are used for felting woolen animals and shapes and toys and so on, and it has little barbs on the end. It's very, very sharp, and what it does is it lines up all of the fibres. We use it in a stabbing motion, and it lines up all of the felt fibres, and it compacts felt down. So we can take a big piece of fluffy felt, felt roving, and we can compact it all down till it's a tiny little tight little thing. And I use it for compacting stuffing. So rather than having your filling out of control and coming out at you, I'm sure you've all experienced that at times, you can use your wool felting needle just as you would on wool, and you can pack that filling in. I'm sure if you've watched any of my videos, you've seen me do that. This one is seriously, will change your whole 3D sewing outlook. This makes all the difference, and I'm all about helping you do it easier, and this will make it easier. Now these are readily available on eBay. They usually come in a pack of sort of 4 or 6, and look for the ones that are the heavier weight. We don't need them to be fine because we're not using them for sculpture, we're just using them for packing. So get the heaviest grade one that you can, and they are not expensive at all. So have a look on eBay for those. The next thing that I have in my toolkit always are my little wooden discs. Now these are teddy bear discs, and they come in a variety of sizes. Now I also have a video that outlines to you all of my own special jointing technique and how to make your own joints. I'm going to put that link up there for you. But I always have several sizes in my wooden joints, and I always have my little joints already glued and made up. That video will show you how to do that. And of course I have my hardware as well. So check that one out. I just find if I have them there, I have them made up, I can make up a project, I can just reach for my joints in the right size and I've got them already done. All of your wooden discs are available at any teddy bear supply, through any teddy bear supply company. They will have all of the sizes that you need. And speaking of joints, we will also need a spanner to do those joints up. When we're making a jointed animal, we just need that little spanner to do those little nuts up. The next thing that I thoroughly recommend that you'll invest in, if you are in an area where you are still using imperial measurements, all of my patterns are in metric measurements. Please buy yourselves a metric ruler. Something like this is ideal. The reason why I use metric is obviously because in Australia this is our system now, but also because my patterns are very small and they're very detailed, the increments are smaller with metric and we get a more accurate measurement. So if you can get yourself a metric ruler, makes it so much easier for you wherever possible. And if the project is a little larger, I will try and include the inch measurements for you. That's not always possible, but if you've got your ruler, you'll be all right. You'll be all set. Next on my list are all the glues that I use. Now I use my clear craft and hobby glue all the time, and this one is a clear one. I know that you can get these in a sort of a white glue. Try and get the clear ones if you can, because they are very quick drying. They have more of a gel-like sort of texture, so that they don't seep through your fabric. It tends to sit where it should sit. Like I said, it is quick drying, and it stays quite flexible. When it's dry, it's still like a sort of a rubbery sort of texture, which is ideal for fabrics. Always make sure that on your whatever brand you get, that it says that it's suitable for fabric, and they usually are. And aside from that, I do use a PVA white glue. It's just your normal wood glue. It's called Aquadear here in Australia, and I use that one when I'm gluing papers and cardstock together, when we're making up our little bases for some of our little animals. This is the glue that I use on the paper, on the cardstock. I also do keep some super glue. I use the gel one. This little pack is great, and this is for when we're jointing and we put a little drop onto that nut to stop those joints coming away. And now moving on to my threads. So I use my top stitching extra strong Gutermann thread. If you follow my videos, you'll know that I use this all the time, and I use it for absolutely everything. So this is a great hand stitching thread, and it's also a fabulous thread for doing your blanket applique stitch on some of these little fine projects. The colours are vivid. Because it's an extra strong thread, the integrity of the thread stays the same. It doesn't buff up and it doesn't get all dull while you're sewing it, and you can use it in quite a long piece. So this one is absolutely essential when you're making my patterns, an extra strong thread. If you can get the Gutermann, I think it's the best one, but I do know that Metler make one as well, and you might have different brands where you are. And I tend to have one in a neutral colour that I use for everything, and of course I build up and I have lots of different colours as well for my embroidery stitching. And now when I need a heavier thread for my embroidery or my blanket stitching, I use a cotton pearl thread. I like DMC, and it is an 8-ply. I very, very rarely use the 5-ply. I just find it's too thick, it's coarse looking. My projects are quite small, so the 8-ply is the best, and of course it comes in just absolutely hundreds of colours, so I really love this one. I also use my little wonder clips all the time. If you haven't got some yet, absolutely get some. They're fabulous. They're so much better than pins in so many little projects. So I wouldn't be without those now. And now, so let me show you also, when I talk about firm cardboard, what I use here is a mat board. So this is a mat board that usually goes around, that picture framers use. So that's your border on your pictures. It's very, very solid. It's very dense, but it's still quite thin, which is awesome. Now I get mine, I go to my local picture framers, so make friends with your local picture framer, and I go and get all of his offcuts, and of course all the centres of the pictures that they cut out, often they just discard them. So if you're lucky, they've kept them aside, and usually I can go and get a whole bag full for about $10, and I've just got all these little scraps, and of course that does all my little circles and cardboard discs and base absolutely fine. So it is called mat board or mount board. So check out your local picture framers for that one. And the next thing I will talk to you about is my fusible webbing paper. Now I call it Heat and Bond on my patterns. That's a brand name. It really doesn't matter what brand you use. It's a matter of trying them out and seeing what you're happy with, though I always use a medium weight. So I don't mess with the heavy weight or the fine weight, the light weight. Everything is medium weight, it's straightforward. So applique paper is called so many things. It's called applique paper, it's called fusible web paper, it's called heat and bond. But what it is paper that has glue on one side that we iron onto fabric. We then remove the paper, we can draw our shape on, remove the paper, and that makes that little piece of fabric adhesive, and you can iron it on to your project. I'm sure you've all used it, but just trying to take the mystery out of the brand thing. It doesn't have to be Heat and Bond. That's a brand name. It can be any brand at all, so long as it's a medium weight. You've given it a try. Once you like a product, you'll find you'll just stay with it. So similarly, the other thing that I use all the time is, and this is maybe my most important material, and this is my interfacing. This is my woven cotton fusible interfacing. Now it has the glue on one side, it's quite fine, and it is the fabric is actually a fabric, so it's not one of those dreadful cardboard interfacing things, horror things. It is a lovely woven fabric. The reason why I use a woven one is because we're making things that are three-dimensional most of the time, and it just means that there is the flexibility within that weave, and so that all of your little seams and your rounded finishes move beautifully and turn through beautifully. So, and I use this interfacing on just about everything. Find a supplier and stick with them. That's, I think it's readily available in most of your big craft supply chains, but do make sure that it is a woven fusible interfacing, and then you'll be right. So that's it for my toolkit. So it's not really a lot, but it's just very, very specific. So if you have each of these things, you're going to feel confident that you can tackle any one of my patterns, and you'll have everything that you need, aside from obviously your fabrics and your extra notions that you'll need, things like buttons and trims and that sort of thing. But these are your basics, and I hope it's made it clearer to you, the things that you need. I don't want you going out and buying unnecessary tools and things, but now I've got you nicely set up, and you should feel confident making any one of my little projects with this little toolkit. So now I'm just going to have a little chat with you about a few things about myself. I've got my little childhood bear here. This is my first ever bear that I ever received as a child, and he's with me. He's been with me through everything. I think it's his fault. He started it all. The love of animals and soft toys and so on. So he's here while I talk a little bit about myself, which I'm not really good at, so that's why he's here. So we'll start at the beginning, and that is that I'm 56 years old. I'm married. I have been for 37 years, and I have 6 amazing children. They're all grown now, and I have 4 grandchildren. I'm sort of hoping that number will go up though. So I'm very much an introvert, so I live very much in my own creative mind. So you understand why this is challenging for me. I'm self-taught with all of my skills. I'm completely self-taught. I didn't even pick up a needle until after the birth of my 5th child. So that shows you can acquire these skills. And as an illustrator, I'm also an illustrator and a soft sculptor and a sculptor. So, but I'm self-taught in all of those areas. If you'd like to see any of my illustration work, you can go and follow me on Instagram, and you'll be able to see examples of my drawings and so on. Who is my inspiration? My inspiration is Walt Disney, always has been. He's my hero because he always said that if you have a vision in your mind's eye, you can create it, and I totally agree with that for sure. Why do I do this? I do this, I was initially, for years, I've been creating one-of-a-kind collectibles and selling them to collectors all around the world. I found after a while that while that was nice for the collector and it was nice for me to create it, it was only reaching that, you know, those very few people, and I really did want to positively impact more people with the things that I could do. So once I started teaching, I realised that that was it for sure, because my reach was so much greater. And now that YouTube is here, we've got an even, you know, a further audience to just be able to encourage people to be creative and find what you love. It's free. Why is it free? It's free because I never, ever, ever want finances to stand in the way of somebody being creative and being able to pursue that potential in themselves. So that's very, very important to me, and that's how Pay It Forward started. And if you will pay it forward, imagine the community that we can create, and it's all positive. So thank you all for doing that. Thank you all for paying it forward. So on to a few of my favourite things. Well, I'd say that dogs would have to be at the top of the list. I love all dogs, all breeds. Been involved with them for years, and I'm also a professional groomer. So I think we're lucky to have them in our lives. I'm sure a lot of you agree with me. Sewing, obviously, that speaks for itself. Yes, illustrating. I absolutely love to draw. From a little girl, that was the earliest thing that I ever did was drawing. That was always my passion when I was very young. Fashion is a massive love in my life. I'm a thrifter, so I thrift. All of my clothes are thrifted, and I have been thrifting for about 30 years. So it's just something that I love to do. I like to be individual, and I dress for myself. I don't follow any rules, and I wear what I like to wear. So that's very important to me. And I think because I'm an introvert, I tend to let my clothes describe who I am. So for me, fashion is art. So I love it. I get asked a lot about my hair. I let it go grey. I transitioned probably about 3 years ago, and this is my hair colour. I'm quite grey. My husband is a hairdresser, and so he cuts it and I style it. So I'm pretty lucky there. Another thing that I absolutely love that I want to really include into my channel here, and that is I love movie quotes and song quotes. Absolutely love the power of words, and movie quotes for me have been a fun part of my life, and actually my daughter's lives. We love the banter. So I'm going to be dropping movie quotes into my videos, and we're going to see who catches them. Who out there is going to catch my little movie quotes and tell me in the comments. We'll see. I'll try and make it tricky for you and see if there's some like-minded people out there, and we can have a lot of fun with this. Hey, so listen for them, and I'll be dropping them in there. So getting specific now, my favourite actor, male actor, I can't split. I have 2, and I can't split them up. I absolutely love Hugh Grant and I absolutely love Kevin Bacon. And I know it's a strange pair, but that's it. Love them both dearly. My favourite female actor is Maggie Smith for sure. She's just the queen. I thoroughly love her wit and her manner and her grace. So my favourite movie, this is even harder because there's so many, but if I have to choose one, there will be honourable mentions, but if I have to choose one, it is still Magnolias, absolutely, all the way. Though I do love Notting Hill and P.S. I Love You and Love Actually, and I could go on, but I won't. My favourite singer, this is challenging for me because I'm actually diagnosed, I'm profoundly deaf. So I can hear a little bit. So I can hear enough to know that Dean Martin is my all-time favourite crooner. He's my favourite singer. Dean has my heart, and I'm going to show my age now. My favourite female singer is Karen Carpenter. So yes, I know I'm a little old-fashioned. My favourite place in the world, that is Disneyland, California. I've been once, and that's because of Walt and because he was there, he walked it and he planned it. So yes, I really enjoy Disneyland there. So, but enough about me. What do you think of me? Did you catch that one? You see, I made it really easy that time. There's going to be more and I'm going to make it harder. So look, moving forward, I hope you continue to follow and subscribe. Lots of patterns coming up. I have so much in store for you all. Remember always to be paying those good things forward because we all can. Now for this final part of my video today, I'm going to leave now because the next part is a little embarrassing for me because I've included some outtakes and bloopers clips because not everything always goes to plan. So you're most welcome to have a laugh on my behalf. I hope you enjoy it. So I'll be off now, so hooroo, but don't worry, I'll be back. You're all doing just so well. Oh, and there's a fly, really? And there's some sweet little projects coming up. And I'm choking. I love a little project like this. It's a real breezy break. It's breezy break. And that is in the description. Just clink. Don't clink on the link. All you need to do is click on that link, print out your pattern pen pates. No, don't do that. Well, thank you for joining. Oh, no, it's welcome. It's hooroo.